So once we've had our first mystical revelation with God, then it's up to us in some disciplined fashion to remain there, because you get a glimpse of eternity. It's like if you meet someone you love, then it's up to you to be responsible for the courtship. Everything has to be clear and clean and open and safe and true from the heart. You have to be respectful to one another for it to work. And it's the same with God. Except with God, there's always this force of temptation, and it's the same with a love relationship. You can see a lady friend or this, or someone in the family doesn't approve, and yet your hearts are one person, right? That's what love is. It's just peace, and you let go of the world around you. And it's the same with God, and except when you have this God experience where you feel the fullness, the totality of this mystical transport, where it's not just being in love with a person, it's being in love with that which we call God, but it's more than love, and it's more than what we call God. And when you have that, you'll understand, like we started earlier, with the fact that you can see the mind of God, which I do, which I'm trying not to talk about, but which is given to me to talk about. It's you can see many, many universes all the time. It's so big, it's so wonderful, it's so endearing, it's so fully engrossing. And yet around people, because you're humble, if you're born in this world, you're so humble that you don't exist. It's like being a little child. And it's not, there's nothing immature about it. It's mature because you don't want to inflict yourself on anyone, because that's what the center of spiritual concentration is. We use the word, it's being contrite. You're humble, you're quiet, even though you can help. I can walk into so many circumstances where I can fix a business, I can heal a person, I can certainly clean someone's psychological case up in seconds. I can do divine healings. I've done many, many times in my life. I never talk about it till right now because I'm moved to. But I'm saying that there's no reason for this world to go on. And I know that it will be over soon. So why shouldn't I have the availability to say this? Because I see it, I know it, I'm part of it. We're all part of it if we want to be. It's over, it's finished, kaput. No more world that seems to be, no more evil, no more murder, no more raping, no more harming, no more judging, no more cruelty. No more inflicting anything on anyone. And when you have this very quiet place in your heart, like I certainly do, and my spiritual friends over the years, like my Baba Bedi or my friend Kathleen years ago, there are so many people I've met that have this. And I'm like that fish that goes upstream and I make it over the rocks and all and into the rock beds to lay my eggs, the salmon for the summer, you know. I've made it through the rapids. This does not need to be. And so what we do is we'll pull back our feelers, stop wanting or needing anything in the world, and it comes to you, it's there. There is a godness to the universe, and when you're very quiet and humble, you are God, whatever God is. But it's so much more than the words or the religious thoughts or aspirations about it. It's not a dreamland, it's not confused, because the very first thought of spirituality is that this world does not exist. So it's not about religion. If you read, like my favorite work of art in human history is the King James Bible, the King James translation. It's unbelievable language and beauty and wonder. And also, if you read the lives, there was a book called God's Secretaries about the writing of it. And there were different ones that were drawn and quartered, even though they were some of the translators. The point is, it was during it was a very rough time. They were trying to pump up the sense of the king, which I agree with. In and of, if I were a worldly person in history and so forth, it was the right thing to cherish the king spiritually and so forth, the divine right of kings. If everything were in a line, it'd be the right thing. It's the same way you love your mom, your dad, your uncle, your aunt, and in the same way today, they'll talk about in England, some people have heard on the radio about the Queen. Well, it's part of the dignity of being part of a culture. And if you were Irish or German during the Second World War, you wouldn't agree with that. So, point is, any group identity that we have in the world brings the beginning sense, a surge of this identity where there's more than, I'm not alone here, I'm not alone here, I'm not alone. So whether it's a band of warriors, you see, or a band of brothers, or a friend going out with a lady friend for a drink the other night, it was like they just feel charming love because it's upscale, there's elegance, dignity to the two people. So, and you get to enjoy life in a subdued, elegant, respectful manner. You just call it class, but it's something much more. And the point that you're touching something better than the everyday when you're touching this atmosphere of closeness, of warmth, of dignity, of being there for the other person, of appreciating the person so much that you could just die looking at them. There are people like that in the world. I can see my buddy Tim, and I have so much respect for him. It's a certain kind of love. I can see my teacher here, and that's a certain kind of love. And just love, ardor, respect, and when both people are spiritually inclined, deeply religious or whatever, they have culture, they have dignity, they have a certain moral basis to existence in their psyche. And so there's a deep appreciation with people like that. With people like myself who are spiritual in the world, my friend Vintal Rinpoche, a Tibetan holy man, it's like when we see each other, it's like as much as we love each other, if we don't see each other, it doesn't matter a few years. If we see each other, that doesn't matter when we see each other, even though it's such a big thing compared to everything else in the world, because we look at each other and we're not there. This isn't here. So it's nice to have that acknowledgement from time to time with a fellow spiritual being. My friend I talked about, the sushi chef, he's an illumined being, a true samurai. He's like, so if I see him, it's like I didn't see anyone, but it quiets any need you might think you have for seeing people, because this doesn't matter. It goes up like, it's gone. It's just a quiet, just a beauty. And spiritual people such as myself live in that grace, that dignity, that wonder, that openness. And so it doesn't matter about a particular world system at a particular time, at the fact that the person, Robert here, doesn't want to talk about this because he is humble. The idea is that there is a God, there's a God consciousness. And when you're there, you can see that this whole thing is already gone. It's like when you see a flash of lightning and the air is sucked out from around you in the mountains. You'll see what I've seen one time, you just strike and the air is sucked out, you're there, and then a few seconds later you hear the sound. And so all the spiritual people in the world, like myself, know that this is over. We've seen the lightning, and we're waiting a few moments for that thunderous sound. And it will be washed away. It'll be no more. That's our future. Despite the poverty or the want or the need and all the disreputable behavior of everyone that just leading each other against one another, there is a peace that passes all understanding. And it's yours, and it's mine, and it's ours. Because God is ours. And it's one step into just humility. I remember being in the demilitarized zone in Vietnam one time as a Marine, and all these little pagodas, I guess you'd call them, these little wooden structures that represented the Buddha, and I would just for some reason put my weapons down and make sure none of my guys saw me, and I'd step up on it, and absolute peace, and I'd step away from it, and I'd make sure no one saw me, and I'd get back into it, and I must have done that 1,000 times over a couple of months, and it's like, just for a moment, but you're like this absolute peace. It's thick, it's real, it's forever. So if this thing were to go up, it doesn't matter, but it'd be done with a whisper, not a thud. When you're very quiet, you'll see indications, you'll actually experience God's mind along with your own during times of prayer. And this is an empowerment session, I'm forced to be honest, so if I'm saying it, you'll feel it. That's simple. Could be 7 o'clock tonight or tomorrow morning, 3 days from now or now. There is a God. There are people who can heal, who can empower, who can teach, who can lift, who can lead. And they always say the greatest leaders they're kind of invisible, and they give it all to you. And our leader is God. And he's giving it all to you. You don't even have to be circumspect. All you have to be is holy, which is humble, which is quiet, which is the person inside all of our hearts. The person of God is you. Because this thing that we call God is unimaginable, and yet you can experience it, unimaginable beauty and dignity, glory and happiness. There's a soft ecstasy to it. The point is, over the next few days and weeks and months, you'll all feel what's being stated today. A transference of our consciousness from the hard and fastness of the phenomenological world, what seems to be. And when you fall in love with God, it's not like falling in love with a person, and yet every moment you fall in love with a person is God. That's just one indicator. Please look, I'm here. But it's so open, so wondrous, so complete, so permanent. Because you're so open, you're so wonderful, you're so complete, you're permanent. That's our true awareness of the natural spiritual state that we all had before the world was, before time was. So whatever disintegrated somewhere in the universe so that this little bacteria called the material world could exist. In other words, I'm saying that because if you looked at God's mind, I'm looking at God's mind and my mind right now, the same mind. This isn't here. This is heaven. I know if you can't feel us, you can't feel us, but this is heaven. In other words, this isn't here. This never was. Only that. In the East, in Sanskrit, they'll say, not this, not that. Meaning, anything that seems to be in your consciousness. You see in the Rig Veda from 3,000 to 5,000 years ago, written in the Indus Valley and so forth. It's, holy men, teachers, wise ones, have always seen and felt this. I know my mother, my 4 sisters, we all feel this. We haven't talked to each other many years, and my sister Jolene called me the other day because we all feel like little But we don't have to see each other. I don't think people, why don't you visit your family? Well, they're here. My mom's always here. She was spiritual and was, is, will always be, because it's one person when you experience God. And these indicators of it are the people we love around us. My buddy's daughter, both buddies' daughters are, three of my guy friends here would all have daughters who have hearts bigger than heaven. There is a God, and God will wipe away all tears. There'll be no more pain, no more tragedy, no more bullies. You don't have to prove yourself. No more bleeding. No more indignities. No more. It never should have been. And if you see the mind of God, you'll realize how all of us in the world, the hundreds of millions of us who are spiritual, live in this place of why. In the scripture it says, in the Revelation, how long, O Lord, must we wait? In other words, for the reclamation of it all, for the tragedy of what occurred to the holy ones, the martyrs. That's what was being talked about. In other words, there has to be an answer to all this, a reason. When I've had different friends die or be hurt on my watch, it makes me crazy because I know I can fix anything. But people have to meet you halfway and want to be fixed. I'm just using very ordinary language for something we all know we're talking about. Using the holy gifts that each of us have from God. And just listening to this, you'll feel it whenever. And there'll no longer be whenever. There'll be time no longer. Remember that from Revelation 10? That's exactly what it meant. The sense of time. And it will be the end of time as well. There are the end times. But they were. Today is the last time. This is heaven. Discuss this with someone you love who has this atmosphere. We all have some like that in our life. It might be my friend George's grandma. There are certain people that just carry this grace, this dignity, this purity, this wonder. My buddy Tim's daughter, Ashley, she's an illumined being and doesn't know it because she's a beautiful young lady with talent and all, and doesn't know why things don't work right. It's because there's nothing wrong with her. It's the whole world doesn't want that kind of wonder. Because the world it's a trap. The consciousness of it. And the consciousness of the world is the thing we let go of in spirituality, in prayer, in reflection, in contemplation, whatever you want to call these things. And today we're doing a spiritual empowerment where I'm telling you, you'll hear this. If I remember it, I saw my friend Baba Bedi in India, and he would hold my hand, and I was already illumined. I was born that way, to be very honest, never not been. And or my friend John Buxbazen is the great Zen master from Los Angeles, and so I've lived with people like him, or Edward Wilkinson, that started at Wilkinson School down here in Half Moon Bay. We were together, we started the World Zen Center. I just walked into things like that all my life, to be very honest with you, and kept happening and happening and happening, and early on I knew it was because I'd already fought the dark, and I knew I'd fought the dark side, and that's why all the people that, they all have some particular angle in their teaching and to be spiritual and so forth, and I've helped many people like that. And that was so I would have the confidence to know that one day I'll get to do this, whatever this is, to represent that which isn't known or seen, can't be heard or felt or grasped, can't be comprehended, can't be experienced. Not this, not that. It's always something greater, always something more luminous and open and gracious. It's the mind of God. And we're all part of it. And we'll feel it and see that in different ways, all of us. I could say in the near future, but as soon as you feel this, there's no sense of time. I do not have a sense of time. I can look into eternity in the future or any time, but in that, this world doesn't exist when you have this illumined atmosphere. The world never was. So I can see oceans of glory that are here. A very delicate touch, but it's there. Or if I wanted to see, which one time I did, off in the, beyond all the solar systems, if there are other places of beings, and I want to go into it, but whatever you can imagine is there, but it's all transcendent of the everyday. Because we are transcendent beings, star walkers. Use the word like starlight because it's so delicate and wonderful to be a part of eternity, a part of God. It's not like anything else. It's just a beauteous lightness. It's holding the hand of the one you love. And the rest disappears. And that's all there is. Thank you, Mr. Skolta. Thank you for listening.